My name is Sara. I am from this wonderful Naugatuck Valley area, and this is a new chapter in my life. And I found my way back to Oxford, Southbury, Seymour, this whole beautiful Waterbury area, the best. I thank Ashia because Ashia is my teacher. And when there's a quote by Rumi that I'm going to probably not get correct, but it says, when you walk the path, the way appears. And when you answer a call, your teachers come, right? And so she is my teacher. I met her in California as I was going through a transformation. I hit a surrender point in 2022. I was a 20-year career veteran in renewable energy, Wall Street, investment banking, private equity, you name it. And, if you look on my resume, I closed $12 billion of deals. B. So 40% of the deals I looked at, 30 billion, I closed 40% of. And so my calling was, renewable energy, just as she is talking about, the importance of plants, the importance of respecting reciprocity, the connection, the recycling, the communal. Because growing up in the woods in Jackson's Cove area of Oxford, right by the Housatonic River, there's spiritual power there. And I brought Ashia there last year in October. We did an event, as I mentioned, in Woodbury, working with earth-centered healing. And then we did a charity event for the women of Safe Haven. It was a healing event to heal their traumas. So Ashia is my teacher. I met her in California amongst the redwood forests and the energy of the whale and the metamorphic energy of the butterfly. It was a women's retreat that I was called to go on as I was in the process of surrendering and saying, you know what, the career I'm in is not working for me. I gotta put an end to it. And I'll tell you a little bit of that story because it has a lot to do with this. The patterns. It's all interconnected, man. Ayahuasca opened my eyes. Big time. And so while I work with Ashia is the integration piece, because she is exactly right. The vine is embodied spirit. It's a very powerful spirit. It's Mama Ayahuasca. And she doesn't know how to let go sometimes. She thinks she's in the rainforest still, even though she's in New York City or in Oxford, Connecticut. And sometimes it's hard to figure out, what the heck did I just learn here? Because my whole world just got turned upside down from all the lessons I just happened to learn in ceremony. And how do I make sense of this? Because nothing seems to make sense from the world I just left. So Ashia is a teacher of mine, as well as others, medicine men in North Dakota and the MHA Nation, who I've been up to see. We're on year 3 of working together. He's part of the Mandan Hadassah tribe up in North Dakota. And others too, Reiki workers and whatnot. But when you walk the path appears. The teacher appears. And so she has been instrumental for me. And I thought she'd be excellent, as Alex and I had a chat talking about, giving me some speech practice. Because part of my transformation is becoming a public speaker and an author and a travel storyteller. Because I've traveled the world, and I think there's a lot of motivational lessons to learn from meeting people from around the world, including the experiences I have like Ayahuasca. So what I'm going to do in this speech is I prepared some remarks. Don't really have a speech memorized like I've done in the past. This is speech number 4, just who's counting. But this is Embolden Adventures is my little travel passion project company that I've set up. And it's something I'm leaning towards and growing and expanding as I walk away from the career I just left. This is part of the book I'm writing. So at the end, I want to share with you an excerpt, maybe about 1,000 words or so, of what I wrote, how it's all interconnected, and why Waterbury, Connecticut, Naugatuck, Connecticut, the Naugatuck River, Shelton, Connecticut, where the 2 rivers converge, have an incredible place in the history of ayahuasca. Yeah, I was at goosebumps. See, that's validation. As I was writing my book by the trees in Oxford, by the fire pit my dad built, I kind of put it together and I said, holy crap. It's all interconnected. Someone, little old person like me from the Naugatuck Valley, got called to the Amazon rainforest. Why? I don't know. It's unfolding. Never touched a psychedelic in my life. Never. Hardly smoked weed. Really drank alcohol. That was it. That was my existence in New York City, going to the clubs. And so I'll tell you quickly about the call, because here I am, 2019, November, and I was working downtown by Wall Street in New York City. And I opened my book in saying this. I'm, minding my own business, going to get some lunch. My friend from the New Jersey office calls me and says, the layoffs are coming. Did you hear? And I said, it's not us. We're going to be fine, because, our team's doing fine. I don't see any problems. Don't worry about it. I was on my way to Morocco in about a few months. And I had a friend of mine, Michelle, who also is from Connecticut, from Branford. She called me up and she's like, I'm doing ayahuasca in the Amazon rainforest. You want to come? And I said, yeah, that's how it went. And she's one of my party friends. We went, House of Yes in Brooklyn, we're doing lots of great things. And she's like, you want to come? I researched this place, Temple of the Way of Light. It's in the Amazon rainforest. It's legit. Think about it. And I said, well, I'm already going to Morocco. If I get laid off, I'll think about it. I'll do it, thinking it's not going to happen. And within days, I got laid off. I was last on the list. I wasn't supposed to be on the list in hindsight. I got laid off. And this was the third layoff of my 20-year career. And in these years that I've been out of work, spiritual transformation has been happening for me. Working with past life regression, session holders, healers, practitioners, and the like. So my kind of awareness of spirituality in this kind of vein has been kind of magnified when I'm out of work. So here comes the world again crashing down. And I asked Michelle, I said, all right, I got to think about this, because, I'm going to Morocco. When do I need to be in Peru? And she told me, well, it's this day. This is the flight to Lima. And I looked and I said, wait a minute. I land from Casablanca. I take my bags. I switch terminals in JFK Airport. I'm back on the plane again. That's how seamless this trip turned out to be. She picked the dates. I had nothing to do with it. So I was like, all right, I guess this is a calling. This is something that the coincidences that were kind of surrounding me as this was growing, this plan, it was just really hard to deny. It's when synchronicity starts to speak, you should listen, because that's the way. When the path you walk, the way appears. It's all interconnected, the signs, sacred geometry. And so I tacked on another portion of that trip, because now I'm out of work. Might as well, right? I'm going to jump here, going to jump there. Might as well go to Peru and Bolivia, southern Peru, Lake Titicaca. And if you guys are fans of Ancient Aliens, I don't know if you've watched the show, we did tack on the trip to Tiwanaku and Pumapuku, which is where advanced civilization is thought to be, in a place that cataclysmically was destroyed. So let's do that while we're at it. So 5 weeks away was this trip I now was putting together, still not knowing anything about ayahuasca, what psychedelics are, what I'm getting myself into. The Mount Everest of psychedelics. This isn't just a really microdose of mushrooms. This is, if you're thinking of psychedelics, this is the one you got to be really careful about. Powerful, very powerful. So I started to learn as we go, and I'm like, oh no, oh no, what am I agreeing to here? I watched every testimonial I could find. I talked to anyone I could who knew about it, which was hardly anybody. But me being me, jumping in 2 feet pretty naively, I was like, let's give it a shot. Why not? I have 5 weeks away. I'm now getting on a plane. It's January 2020, the end of January. So if you think about where you were in the year 2020 and what was happening, and at this point, things were, what? There's something brewing in China. There's something going on in Seattle. There was a cruise ship maybe getting detained, but no big deal. All right, going to Morocco, bye. And then here I am, wrapping things up with the bachelorette party, but seeing the sacred patterns at the mosques, right? I sent you that picture. That was on the front door of the palace in Fez in 1400s. So Fez, as I came to learn, and in Morocco in general, was the kind of center point for the Islamic Golden Age. And as I've traveled the world, I've been everywhere, if you could imagine. I've been a lot to the Middle East and to a lot of mosques. And here we are in a sacred temple, just as a mosque is sacred to folks overseas, and even here locally. Their divinity is through the patterns. Muhammad, their prophet, is not to be characterized in a human form, right? It's through the patterning, okay? And as I go around to places like Chichen Itza and Teotihuacan, these kind of mystical places, the megalithic, the patterns, okay? So, okay, interesting. I'm in Morocco, got some Islamic golden era going on. This was like a renaissance of mathematics, right? Of medicine. There's a lot going on. And, I'm a dabbler of Joe Rogan, I'll say. I like to listen to his stories about, psychedelics, about cataclysmic events, Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, right? And I try to put two and two together sometimes when I hear a bunch of different guests that come on and kind of piece it together. And for me, the cow is sacred in India. Here are nomadic people in Morocco, right? You're walking in a desert. You're with the Bedouin or the Berbers that are in that area of North Africa. You hear about the theory that the Terence McKenna and Dennis McKenna kind of propose about the stoned ape theory, right? Mushrooms. Cow is sacred because psychedelic mushroom goes on the cow patty, right? And here are these people kind of going through the desert, and if there's an oasis or a rainstorm in the camel patty, how do you know they weren't eating a psychedelic mushroom? Same thing with the theory of stoned ape theory, right? They theorize that primates were ingesting these mushrooms and synesthesia was happening, where you can hear sounds, or hear colors, I should say. Your senses get crisscrossed. And mushrooms are known to build your neural networks, okay? And that's partly why working with psychedelics and these plant medicines are critical for breaking addictions, because your neural network patterns are being reset in some ways. And it's addressing the traumas that Ashia speaks to, where you work with the plant and you journey, and you go deep with it. So for me, the stone ape theory, I guess, let me finish that point, is the prefrontal cortex of the primate over 2 million years is theorized to have grown because they were ingesting a psychedelic mushroom. And it's helped to evolve us into a human today with the capacity of being very intelligent comparatively. So here I am in Morocco. It's like, wow, it's all patterns and beauty and all that. And, okay, now I'm standing on the edge of the beach in Casablanca on the Atlantic Ocean side watching the sunset. And I'm like, in 24 hours, I'm going to be across the pond. I'm going to be in a rainforest. I'm literally going from the desert, from an African continent. I'm ping-ponging back to New York, picking up my bags. It was Super Bowl that night. I remember watching it. I was like, I have no idea. All right, team's playing. Get my bag, continue on, and now I'm in South America. And then I lay over, and I'm here now in Iquitos, Peru. Yeah, that's how I roll. Par for the course. One time I was on a plane for 30 hours. I was like, all right, let's go. So, Iquitos. Let's talk about Iquitos briefly. Iquitos is the largest city in the world that's not accessible by roads. 500,000 people live in Iquitos, in the middle of the Amazon rainforest in Peru. And if you can see where the Amazon River happens, you have the other rivers combining into Iquitos. So geographically, it's a very strategic point for people. Okay, so let's keep that in mind for a second. Iquitos, when you get there, it has all these buildings that are all kind of crumbling down. They're built in the 1800s. And all these people were coming in from all over the industrialists. So there's remnants of that. But now it's an interesting place because it's where people come for journeying, plant medicines. Go to the shaman markets, you're going to get San Pedro. You could buy your own bottle of ayahuasca right here. You could buy, a snake that they found in the rainforest. It's all kind of coiled up and ready. Although you're going to get stopped at customs, so I highly recommend you don't buy the snake. Crocodile heads. I mean, it's a cool place because they know tourists are here to do ayahuasca and to do other things, rapé, snuff, a lot of different sort of plant medicines that are ceremonial from the indigenous that are there in the rainforest. So the Shipibo are one of the indigenous tribes that have been there for a long time. I think it's Shipibo it's a dash, Shipibo Kanibo, I believe. But this is Shipibo. This is their patterning. This is hand embroidered, and we'll get to this in a second. So they sell these as well. And so yeah, we're in Iquitos now, and we get on a boat, and we take the boat down the Nene River, 45 minutes putting, and then the boat docks in the mangrove forest. We maneuver through the mangroves. We're welcomed by the people who live in the village, and now we're hiking another hour into the rainforest. At that point, you're completely removed from society for the next 2 weeks. And we were welcomed by the maestros and the maestras, the 5 of them, the shamans. And mainly, they were women. There's 2 men. One was Benito, Anaconda Man, who scared me, because I'm afraid of snakes. But Benito was Anaconda Man. And then there was Richard, who was the protector of the wind. And there was Teresa and Manuela, Olga, and then, who's the other person? I think, yeah, that's it, 5. So they were our shamans. They were our maestros and maestras, the medicine women and men. And we were welcome to Temple. Now, Temple, the way I like quickly, I'll explain, is a very important place to do ayahuasca. And if you are ever interested and you feel the call to go, this is the place you want to go. It's been around for over 20 years. They honor the traditions. It's safe in the sense of, making sure that the maestros and maestras are who they are. They're not pretend. They're not there for the dollar for the tourists. This is the time-honored traditions. They also have facilitators that are PhDs that are studying this, and others that are there. God forbid something would go wrong if you have some bad trips or bad kind of problems that are arising as a result of this. We did 7 ceremonies, which over 2 weeks is a long time and a lot. Again, didn't know what I was getting myself into. 7. I never touched a psychedelic, remember? 7. And Ashia is right, because the medicine does take time, and ayahuasca works for 4 days. So layering it on, you're compounding. We get a day off, but it didn't matter. And so it was very important for us to maintain a dieta, to kind of detoxify yourself so the medicine could work. And so we did that leading up to no sex, no pork, no drugs, no alcohol, no sugar, no red meat. I mean, basically nothing. You're just eating. It depends on what you're eating. So a month leading up to, and then 2 weeks leading up to, and then within, they're cooking a very basic meal for you, and then 2 weeks after, and then a month after. So really the key thing that you have to abstain from is the pork. Yeah, pork has a lot of energetic, maybe Ashia can help here too, but somehow pork and the energies it brings is just not good for you. It's a negative, very negative. So it kind of crisscrosses with the plant teachings. So they're very, of all of them, stay away from pork. That's pretty, and drugs and alcohol and sex. So sex is important too, because you're commingling your energies with someone else and you're being cleansed right now. So the ceremonies we did, they were 7, as I mentioned. The first one's a diagnostic ceremony. The next 2 are the cleansing ceremonies. The following 3 are the realignment ceremonies, and then the last one's the arcana. And that's where the doozy for me happened, the arcana. Arcana is where they stitch you back up energetically, and you got the crown exposed. You have to cover your head for 3 days. No exposure to sun, no exposure to water, rain, nothing like that. They want you to make sure you're sealed, ready to go back to the world you just left. So a few other things, I want to touch upon the ceremonial aspects of it. Ashia talked about how the vibrational energies of the plants. And in the Maloka, which is the ceremonial room that we were in, we had lots of opportunities to interact with the maestros and maestras prior to the evening ceremonies. Opportunities to talk with them, to hear them, to understand their culture, to really know what we're getting ourselves into. And they were being translated because they didn't speak English. They spoke Shipibo, Quechua, and Spanish. And then we had the facilitators being our intermediary. And one thing they mentioned, amongst many, and this is going to be reflected in the book I'm writing, is that The plants told them how to put the ayahuasca vine and the chacruna leaf together to create medicine. The plants, so what Ashia is saying is 100% right. The plants told them. The vibrational energies of the plants, they were able to pair them. Chacruna leaf grows in one part of the rainforest, far away from the ayahuasca vine, in another part of the rainforest. They are not co-located. And it's incredible. And so they think there's about 150,000 different species of plants in the rainforest. And you could also argue that this was an intelligent design by an advanced civilization. That a lot of what we know about the rainforest, sort of foods that we eat, any sort of healing plants, come from the rainforest. And I know for a fact, because I stood there, that the rainforest is actually growing on a desert. The soil is fallow. The soil is not good. So when you sit there and you're going to push your foot there, you're like, yeah, it's clay. It's not very fertile, even though it's a rainforest. So when they're cutting down these trees and making way for cattle and, soy and whatever else that they're doing, they're only getting a few turns of that soil before they have to cut down some more trees and more vegetation to continue on whatever they're doing with their farmland. So one point I want to make is Shia talked about the importance of allyship. Okay? What the shamans were telling us is there's a very critical tenet that they believe in with their culture is called Ayini, A-Y-N-I, and it relates to reciprocity. Right? It's the whole idea of recycling, ecological recycling. So me being called to be a renewable energy executive and doing solar deals and wind deals and you name it deals was really me, I think, inherently knowing that there's something very important about the protection of plants. I'm a tree hugger. I used to say I'm a capitalist tree hugger. Figure that one out. Working on Wall Street and doing IPOs, but I'm hugging that tree because it's important for the world, right? And now I realize this is important for the world. Even the issues out west, I talked about North Dakota. Think about the Dust Bowl that happened in the late, 1920s or so. Partly that has to do with the reason they killed off the buffalo, right? They were trying to, obviously, punish a lot of the Native American indigenous out in the plains by killing off the buffalo. And the buffalo were, walking their walk throughout America, and as they do that, they're regenerating the soil. They're nitrates from their urine, okay? And when you're now doing industrial farming out there, you don't have the ability to regenerate the soil. Renewable energy is actually a story about soil. And mushrooms are very critical in that story because the mycelium network, mushrooms are not a plant nor an animal. They're their own genus. And so the networks underneath are really critical to bring the nutrients, the nitrogen and others to the roots of the trees, right? The trees can connect to one another because of the mycelium network, right? So when you start screwing with the soil, we have problems. You can't take in the carbon dioxide. There's no reciprocity, no sort of circularity of the ecosystem. Okay? Absolutely. So this is what Ashio is referring to too. Allyship with the plants. Respect for the plant. An understanding and a knowledge for the plant. Because the more you start to ruin the soil and take up that's why we have more floods. Right? That's what we're ripping out the mangroves. They're the root system that protect the area. The coastal flooding is now a reason because there's no mangroves. So the Shipibo in the rainforest practice reciprocity. They know it's important. It's a critical piece of their survivalship. And so part of when I was in the rainforest in the Maloka and doing the ayahuasca, which I'll get to in a second, I kept asking myself, why am I here? This is a fad? Is this fun? This is a cool travel story, but I don't have addictions. I don't have deep traumas. I'm not suffering from war. This is just cool, man. Okay, whatever. Why are they giving their time and effort to me, a pasajero, right? A passenger, they call us. They refer to us as passengers. Their whole entire body's being used. They're laboring. You hear them coughing. You hear them struggling. They're ingesting the ayahuasca themselves, and they're reading your aura, and they're singing all night long. And why am I taking this in for fun? For tourists, for souvenirs, so I could talk to you all and say, I'm writing a book, And that's, I guess, what people try to caution people, be careful. with this stuff because you have to have a reverence for it and know what you're getting yourself into and have an ability to kind of communicate the sacredness of this. And so my friend in Holland, when he was there, he had to have a conversation with me, and he willingly wanted to talk to me about this and said, they're doing this because there's a calling. And I couldn't understand what that means. What's a calling? What is, I guess a doctor's a calling, a firefighter's a calling. There's a heroicness to it. But they're also doing it because of reciprocity. They need to help themselves by helping us because their world's being destroyed. Petroleum companies, Brazilian government, whatever is going on, that's closing in on them fast. And a disrespect for the plants. Right? Their kind of way of life is jeopardized right now. So the only way they can save themselves is by opening up their wisdoms to us, the ambassadors, and trying to get the word out. This is important. So what she is doing is very important, right? She learned the ways from the Guatemalan women, the Belizean women, the medicine women, because their own community isn't teaching them the ways anymore. So she's been called to take it on. So when they train as shamans, they go and they ingest the medicine. And they go into the rainforest with their shaman teacher, and they're there for a month. They could be 8 years old doing this, learning how to be a shaman, if that's the calling. And so they're in isolation, ingesting the medicine, only getting food by the shaman, so they can start hearing the plants, the vibrational energies of the plants. Or it could be the animals. Sometimes they go inward to talk to the herds. Are your herds too fat this year? Are you too slim? Like, who's sick? Can we ask permission to take one of yours for our own sustenance? There's a reciprocity of respect. So they hear the channel the animal essence, they channel the plant essence. And so knowing that the rainforest has maybe 150,000 different species of plants potentially out there that they don't even know for sure, the ayahuasca vine and the chacruna leaf vibrated, and they knew to bring them together. So the plants told them how to make the medicine. Okay? If you were to do that statistically, it'd be impossible to do brute force, right? I think it's billions upon billions of trial and error process. This plus this, nope, didn't work. This plus this didn't work. This take forever. The intelligence of the plants informed them about this medicine, this healing.
So if you take either of those plants by themselves, it won't do anything. You might get maybe an upset stomach, you might not even feel anything. But both of those plants need to be together when it's brewed to have any kind of effect at all.
Bingo. That was my next point. Absolutely, Alex. Eric, I was going to call you Eric. Alex, 100%. So that's right. So why is the ayahuasca vine important? Why is the chacruna important? Chacruna has a DMT, dimethyltryptamine, right? You could smoke it, but you can ingest it. And what we have in our own body is DMT, apparently. That's not proven yet, but they suspect your pineal gland has DMT in it. Okay? That's why it's your third eye. That's how you can see your visions in meditation. Okay? And everyday foods have DMT in it. So we have DMT in our body by ingesting the plants from a, health perspective. But you're right, the MAO enzyme in our body, we've evolved where the enzyme prevents the DMT from being, activated in your brain, the prefrontal cortex and in the pineal gland. So what the ayahuasca vine does, even though it's called ayahuasca, it's really chacruna. You're doing chacruna, man. But the vine has an enzyme inhibitor, MAO enzyme inhibitor. Okay? I don't know what it stands for. Myox. Thank you. That's it. So the vine, Mr. We should have a biology class. So what's happening is when you put these two together, and they tested it, they smashed the vine, they boil it for 2 days, they put the chacruna leaf in, They boil it down, and it has this viscous brown kind of tea, la medicina, the ayahuasca tea. And so the enzyme inhibitor, you drink it, it's now saying, all right, enzymes, shut down. You're no longer in charge for the next 3 hours. And then there's an intense flood of DMT that comes in. Now, Alex is right. It may not work. It may not work. And you know why it actually does work? Is because of what Ashia talked about. Set and setting. You're in the rainforest with the surrounding plants. Goosebumps, see, that's validation. The Icaros. The songs of the plants. So, as they're learning their training and their shamanistic ways, they learn how to sing the songs of the plant, the vibrations. And every person that they sing to, what they'll do is they'll start singing communally in the center of the maloka, and then they break out into the circle, and then they go and rotate. And every person gets 5 individual songs from 5 individual shamans, as you've just ingested the medicine. So, when they sing to you, the Icaros, that's when the magic happens. They say that the ayahuasca is actually the injector. The Icaros is the medicine. The vibrational energies of the surrounding plants. That's why set and setting is so important. It's an activation. Absolutely. So, let's talk about the Icaros. This is the Icaros. I see this in vision during the ayahuasca. It looks like brackish water. You know, when you go scuba diving, the water of the ocean meets with the fresh water and it becomes brackish. That's what you first see in the dark. Something like that. Or it looks like thumbprints, or my jacket. Actually, it's my jacket. That's what it starts looking like. The vibration, the fabric of the 3-dimensional world starts to crumble away. And the multi-dimensional world starts to open up. Right? So, the colors, the electric colors, right? The greens. So what this is the green is ayahuasca, the vine. She's also known as a snake. This is the vibrational Icaros. And then these represent just like your symbols, male and female. Okay? So when Olga, one of my favorite maestras, was showing me the bag when we got to buy these later as a way of, tipping. We wouldn't tip them directly. Say, we buy your wares, your beautiful wares. She would read this and start singing it. However she's, and so I would encourage you to go on YouTube and put in Icaros, a maestra, or Temple of the Way of Light, or wherever, and you could hear them sing. The rattle, right? She had talked about the rattle. They whisper. There's a lot of ceremonial. They drink tobacco, which is also a psychedelic. There's a lot of ceremonial practice that goes into blessing the ayahuasca before we start to mapacho cigarettes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pure, and they give it to us as a way to calm down. Smoke the mapacho and the senpai, the Palo Santos. You burn the Palo Santos. So another thing that Ashia talked to in the beginning was smoke and sound. In my psychedelic visions, those 2 things transcend the dimensions. You see sound in the dimensions, in the multi-dimensions in the psychedelic visions. You see the smoke. The smoke has some sort of mass to it. It somehow transcends. So singing, right? We talk about going out to the look for aliens, and we put like radio signals, right? The sound vibrations, the vibrations. Sound is vibrational. Vibrations, the sine curve, it can transcend the dimensions. I saw it with my mind's eye under the medicine. It's trippy stuff. So that's part of the ceremony. We did a lot of floral baths. We did the vomitivo, because that's another thing people are nervous about, because you start to purge badly. Every single bit of contents that are down wherever they can find come out. And the purge is also an opening, an invitation for the stuff to come to see, to experience, to vision. So what we did was, to get used to the idea of someone around me vomiting in the darkness, we had a contest. We went to the shaman's house. We ingested copious amounts of lemongrass tea, and so we could in broad daylight in front of us all. That was the first order of business when we got there. Get comfortable vomiting now. Because that's what's going to happen when you're in ceremony. It's one of the many things to purge. That's correct. Yeah, and they also, marijuana, other sort of teacher plants, they crisscross the message. So they fight each other, actually, the intelligence. Like coyote is a grandfather spirit. Mama Ayahuasca is a feminine spirit. So there's crisscrossing. So they warn you. Choose one because they're going to confuse you. They're going to argue. Who's better? So, yeah, exactly. Partly why a dieta is quite critical. Yeah. So I'm just going to go through here. I have some notes. I'm kind of jumping around. But why people do it, it's a mirror. It's not a fortune teller. It's a mirror. It's a mirror to your subconscious. It helps you face yourself, right? It's a physical ailments it treats. It treats mental ailments. It treats emotional, spiritual, whatever it is you're seeking. So Ashia talked about allyship of the plants, having a relationship, setting an intention. And in the beginning of ceremony, you say, show me, teach me. I want to learn. And so you tell the plant what it is you want, why you're here. And for me, it was like, I want to know about aliens. I want to know about, God. I want to know about, I want everything. Tell me it all. Why am I here? Why'd you call me? Why am I here? That's right. And you got to be careful because words matter. It's spells, right? Show me is the most powerful of them all, the commands. You want to ease into it? I want to know. But show me it. Okay, buckle up. Right? Watch out because you're going to learn. And you may not. And the medicine will teach you whatever it feels you need to know. And sometimes these bad trips can be really bad. It could shake you to your core and more. And sometimes the medicine, they say you could do 100 different ayahuasca ceremonies and every single one's going to be different. Every single one, because it's something else, some aspect of the prism you still want to know. Okay, I'm going to go quickly. I mean, my intentions, I talked about that. I did ayahuasca again later when I came back in Connecticut. I microdosed it, and I did it for a month period, and it was with a virtual team. But we can get into that for a minute. But let me tell you. Let me actually tell you. Let me read the book, the paragraph, because this is why I think this is very important for us in Connecticut to know this story. So bear with me and let me know because this is a manuscript. It probably will change. Okay, so bright city lights moving at hyperspace speed and converging toward a point in the horizon, reflecting off enlarged aviator glasses. The glasses were worn on an unusually big head topped by a tan bucket hat that was held up by a crooked, grotesquely thin neck. A lit cigarette lay clenched in a toothy grimace of this face, a calm plume of smoke rising from the end of a long cigarette countered by an intense look of restlessness. I glanced at this distorted caricature image. It was of Hunter S. Thompson, the famed 1960s psychedelic author of the drug-induced adventure novel turned movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. This image is the emblem of the movie about Thompson's true story, Wild Adventure on Psychedelics. The image was also on the t-shirt Tamor, my friend in the Mocha, was wearing as he passed me on the rainforest path the day after we concluded Ceremony 3. He seemed to be in good spirits since I saw him last standing spellbound in the dark Boloka. He looked terrified once the ceremony was over. So I'll go quickly, but what I want to say to this is how it's all interconnected. It's going to touch upon Ayini that we talked about, protecting the plants, and the history of the Iquitos that we'll get to. I knew my own true story, Wild Adventure on Psychedelics, was happening then and there. Just 24 hours prior, while lying in my swinging hammock, I questioned what was real and what was the result of psychedelic drugs. However, after meeting Mama Ayahuasca in Ceremony 3, I believe now that there was something more going on than just drugs, a powerful intelligence existing beyond our usual understanding. I was 99% certain of it now, but I still reserve that last 1% of doubt due to whatever may unfold over the next 4 ceremonies ahead of us. It's divine, someone offered at our group session in the Maloka that day. He was referring to Mama Ayahuasca in the discussion hosted by our facilitator, Adam. Our conversation was about the way the Shipibo and the long-standing indigenous cultures like them fundamentally understand the natural world. Animism is the term Adam used, and it's the belief that all natural things in this world, plants and animals, rocks and mountains, rain and river, wind and storms, possess a divine soul, a spiritual breath or essence, a consciousness. Each are intelligent, sentient beings who coexist as part of the broader community of the natural world. For example, it is believed that tree spirits inhabit the forests, or water sprites live as one with the rivers and oceans, or rock deities encompass the mountain, such as El Capitan in Yosemite. I know the Native Americans speak of a grandfather spirit that is the wind, and I recalled the time I was in Myanmar a few years earlier where we learned about Nat spirits. They in Myanmar, too, believe that natural spirits reside in the forests, trees, and mountains, and these spirits are known as Nat spirits. The locals pay homage to these spirits at a place called Mount Popa, a rock plateau formed as an eroded dormant volcano with a temple built on its apex. While we were in Myanmar, we climbed all 777 steps of Mount Popa, barefoot, as customs dictate. We stopped along the way to elaborate gilded and mirrored altars to the spirits, while avoiding the mischievous macaque monkeys jumping about on the pathway. Mama Ayahuasca is known to be a spirit as well. She resides inside the ayahuasca vine, hence the Quechua word aya, meaning spirit, and huasca, meaning woody vine, that we learned previously from Adam. Ayahuasca is known as a master teacher plant, and Mama Ayahuasca is the teacher. But a new revelation for me occurred there in the Maloka. Our discussion focused on some more on who Mama Ayahuasca is. She comes through visual form as the color of forest green, or like that of the fern. I gasped and paused in reflection. What? That description was exactly how I saw Mama Ayahuasca just the night earlier in ceremony. She was a blanket of dark green, and then the fiddlehead baby fern unfurling, so the sacred geometry, nautilus shell. I knew it was her without any explanation or proof. I just knew it inherently in my soul, and now I was hearing the validation. Our discussion continued. Sometimes she comes in the form of 2 people, a man and a woman, appearing at the same time. Other times she comes in the form of a woman only. Additionally, she appears as the anaconda or the puma. So when Ashia and I were in Star House in Colorado, we journeyed in that powerful place she talked about the temple, and we talked about my helper spirits, goosebumps. I saw Mama Ayahuasca as a man and a woman. And so this is confirming it too. Remember that, Ashia?
I do.
Yeah. And so I stared in disbelief. Wait, what? She's a snake? I asked myself in shock. Mama Ayahuasca was the snake this whole time? So I saw a demon in the form of a snake in an earlier ceremony. I tried to process this mind-blowing discovery. Was she that growling demon too? Was that the puma? I was awestruck. Here before me was the proof I needed. She must be real. This experience must be real. Something extraordinary must be happening here. I was becoming convinced. Then the maestros and maestros know Mama Ayahuasca is real. Oh, okay. They learned how to listen to the plant vibrations, the Icaros, and they channel Mama Ayahuasca through the songs of the plants they sing. She's a tender spirit who cleanses, rebalances, and releases energetically stored hurt and traumas in one's life. She is La Medicina, the medicine after all. She imparts wisdoms as well and bestows pure love. And I reckon she's part of the greater one consciousness I saw in Ceremony 1. Adam spoke about how it's believed ayahuasca came to be. Okay, this is interesting. I'll wait. How about here, Alex? This here? You knew inherently. Okay. Adam spoke about how it is believed ayahuasca came to be. The indigenous communities from the rainforest say that Mama Ayahuasca entered the vine as early as the 1900s during the time of the Industrial Revolution. They think she arrived to heal the traumas that suffered by these communities from the mistreatment and the atrocities they experienced over time in their history. Good night. The mistreatment happened at the hands of the conquistadors and later from the missionaries and the industrialists. So we talked about trauma, right? How this helps people in healing their trauma. A lot of the indigenous communities have been traumatized for many eras, and these are the reasons why. Conquistadors, the missionaries, industrialists. These communities are already suffering for what Adam referred to as the biggest genocide in the history of mankind. Deadly diseases, smallpox, the flu, tuberculosis, rubella, and the measles, brought by colonizers, plagued the Native Americans, First Nations people, and other indigenous communities from as north as Canada to as south as Tierra del Fuego in Chile. They had never encountered these diseases from overseas, so they had no natural immunity to protect themselves. Adam said these diseases traveled much faster through North, Central, and South America than the colonizers moved. He noted that 60 to 100 million people there died from the disease, resulting in an 85 to 95% reduction of local populations. Those living in small communities by the river, like Iquitos, were impacted the worst due to their close encounters with the explorers. Iquitos is a strategic area in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. It's centered where the Amazon River and several other major rivers converge. This location allowed for easy exploration of the rainforest by these foreigners via the river system. As Adam informed us, the missionaries who arrived in the area tried to convert local people to Christianity. The indigenous were thought to be possibly animalistic and soulless and needed Christ in their life. Those that did not comply with an adoption of the religion were enslaved and sold. Families were separated, the communities were presumably horrified and unsure as to what was happening. To make matters worse, industrialists arrived in Iquitos in search of the native rubber trees growing in the Amazon rainforest. Natural sap from the rubber tree was treated in a process called vulcanization, making it able to withstand heat and cold, thereby creating a robust material we know today called rubber. This is important when we were in that room. Charles Goodyear, a self-taught chemist from my hometown in the lower Naugatuck Valley area in Connecticut, discovered vulcanization in the mid-19th century. Rubber's durability and elasticity were ideal for use in automobile tires, and machine belts, among other critical ways. And so, natural rubber was a leading material, highly sought and fueling the Industrial Revolution of the late 19th and early 20th century. The rubber boom was a black gold rush for industrialists. It transformed the world and the area of Iquitos. And this boom was made possible off the backs of the local indigenous communities of the Amazon and around the world, such as Congo and Africa. Those in the Amazon were exploited, enslaved into labor camps, and terrorized by the industrialists. If the indigenous people could not locate a rubber tree, they would be subject to horrific, brutal abuses. Therapists speak of the idea that unhealed trauma passes on from generation to generation. Intergenerational trauma is a term used to describe this ideal. Unhealed trauma may manifest through unhealthy coping mechanisms, mental illness, or how DNA structure expresses epigenetically, for example. Pain, suffering, and traumatic events experienced because of these atrocities these indigenous communities faced may have been compounded within the generations. Fortunately, these communities, already deeply and spiritually attuned to their natural world around them, found a way to seek relief. They discovered the ayahuasca vine. Or if you ask the maestros and maestras like we did earlier, ayahuasca discovered them. The plants informed how to pair the ayahuasca vine with the tracruna leaves rich in DMT to create la medicina. The lineages of the maestros and maestras over time have been practicing these secret ceremonies using la medicina to welcome in Mama Ayahuasca through until today. So they say that in 1900, Mama Ayahuasca embodied the vine because of the rubber revolution happening here in Naugatuck, Connecticut on Rubber Avenue. It's all interconnected. Connecticut, the valley in particular, is a main character in this story. It's all interconnected. And so in ceremony 1, and I'll quickly finish, ceremony 1, when I was ingesting ayahuasca and having fun in my psychedelics, here I am flying over Route 8. No joke. In my visions, I'm flying over Route 8. I see Shelton. I see where the river and Derby. I see where they converge. I see the buildings. I just came from Morocco. I'm in my mind tiling the buildings. Make it colorful. Bring the tile. Less rust color and more vibrancy. This area needs healing. It needs healing. There's addictions here. There's pain. There's trauma. There's trouble. I felt it. It was so deep. And for me, I didn't know what was happening, but I could see that the Naugatuck River was the bad river, and the Housatonic River was the good river, where I took a Shia. She feels it. She could verify this. There's power in that Jackson's Cove. Native American blood was never spilled there. It was a very sacred place. They used to have 200 miles of drumming just to communicate like the Morse code along the Housatonic. So, but the Naugatuck, we know a lot happens in our valley. People are sick, right? There's been chemicals in the water, there's been a disrespect to the water. And now I read recently that there's a dam in Seymour, right by the water treatment plant. That dam was built in the late 1800s during the industrial era, right? What was happening? Building up the community of Naugatuck Valley on the backs of ayahuasca, on the backs of rubber. And here is a dam that now has destroyed the ecosystem of our Naugatuck River because it's elevation of the two rivers. It's not connecting the flora and the fauna. And I just read 6 months ago that Rosa DeLauro and the mayor of Ansonia and the mayor of Seymour and some nonprofits locally got federal funding, $13 million, to now break down that dam. This river is beautifying. You see in Waterbury, they're creating a brand new park by the river. They see that this area of Connecticut is going to flourish with tourism because we're going to have kayakers now, fly fishing now. So respect for the community, cleaning up our river. The good work we're all doing as stewards here in our area matters. We're paying back the problems that we created in the rainforest. Is that right? Ah, there you go. Interesting. Well, there you go. Makes sense. But now we're cleaning the river. We're getting it. We're collectively, there's an awakening going on with the power of the plants happening. Yeah. Well, they recognize that this river is important because now they're creating pathways all the way to the border of Massachusetts. So something's happening subconsciously. I don't think we purposely are doing this. We just know to do it. We're awakening. We're rising up. We're answering the call. We're connecting back with nature. So that's my quick talk. I hope you enjoyed it. And read my book. Thank you.
3, 2, 1, go. Are you ready? Are you ready? Ready, set, go. Are you ready? Are you ready? Ready, set, go. Everyone watching, we up in the game. Shooting our shot, yeah, we ready to play. Looking at power, no, we can't be tamed. Remember the name. Leveling up, yeah, we breaking the chains. Playing with fire to rattle the cage. Pushing the limit, whatever it takes. This is the moment where legends are made. Where legends are made. 3, 2, 1, go. Are you ready? Are you ready? Ready, set, go. Are you ready? Are you ready? Ready, set, go. Yeah, we told ya, we the champions, we the chosen. Gonna bust it wide open and own it. In the zone, yeah, don't you know it? Yeah, this is the moment.